I always enjoy giving back, and I get the sense that this is another opportunity to give back. So that creates its own excitement.
I'm
Good
Natasha
afternoon.
Andrews, and welcome to Corporate Corner. We're so
Thank you
glad to
very much.
have you today. The first question, you want to talk a little bit about your journey.
I first started work in telco back in 1979. And well, maybe I should start first. In growing up, one of the things I wanted to be desperately was an engineer.
Oh,
There were five things I identified, but over the course of time and study, I zeroed on engineering. So after leaving A levels, I saw an ad for the post of central office technician at Telco, right? And then I applied, and it just so happened that when I went to the post office and collected my mail, the date for the interview had passed. So I said, so I said, notwithstanding, I'm still going to try and see, whether they're still interested. So on the Monday after I wrote my last A-level exam, I went into the organization and indicated that I received this mail in the post and to find out whether they were still interested. It just so happened they were still interested in me, so I started work as what they call a central office technician at Telco back in 1979. You can imagine what the technology was back then, right?
no, I was only 2 years old.
Well, I mean, at this age, you can surely imagine the type of old technology, the amount of space equipment took up, and so on. So I started work as a technician with the intent that when A-level results came out, I would go to UE and do engineering because I studied the maths, physics, chemistry thing. It just so happened that while in telco on a sort of temporary basis because they had advertised for temporary technicians, I saw this ad where they were giving scholarships to go to university in different fields, right? Engineering being one of them. And I applied, and it just so happened that I got it, right? And I went off to UE on a scholarship from Telco. A nice little anecdote to that story is it just so happened that during the time that I applied and went through the process, the HR manager was on vacation. And when he came back out, he was very upset to find out that these people got who were temporary. They weren't even permanent because there's two of us who came in and out of A levels into the company and were selected to go to UE. Back then, Telco had to go through that process because they weren't paying enough to attract engineers. They decided to send employees to UE and bind them to contracts for 3 to 5 years so that they could have the type of expertise and the capacity to evolve the organization given where it was. So,
Oh,
so fortunately, the HR manager was on vacation. We got through, right? The board approved the appointment, and we were off to UE. So he came back out steaming, but it was too late, right? So I went off to UE, studied electrical engineering with uh, what do you call it, a bias or a specialization in telecommunications. And back then, as I said, one of my goals as a young boy growing up was to be a chief engineer. That's all I wanted to know. I wanted to be a chief engineer. It didn't matter what. But I zeroed in on electrical engineering with a focus on telecoms. And I started my journey at Telco, which then became TSCT. And
mm.
then, well, it evolved over the years. Um, when I graduated, there was a chief engineer at Telco, but somehow over time, that desire went away because after working in the organization for about 10 years, they selected me to be on a transformation team to prepare the organization for competition. And I have to tell you, that's when my eye opened up from being an engineer to being anything else. I always tell people I used to be an engineer because the world is so much greater than being an engineer. And one of the things I always tell all my the people I coach and mentor You must never be one dimensional, right? They talk about being jack of all trades and master of none, but it's possible to be good at a few of them. And in this age that we're in, you have to be good at a few of them if you really want to succeed. You cannot be one dimensional. So I joined a team established by, it was then TSCT, to transform the organization. And the area they put me on was to develop the new mission, vision, and values for the organization. Hallelujah. I tell you, that was the biggest transformation in my career. Right. So I started to read books like, Good to Great, right? There was the other one about values. And the whole issue of leading by principles, that's where it's manifest. If you lead by principles and you don't have agenda, you're always on the straight and narrow. And that is one of my greatest learning in my career in terms of being a leader, being a manager, especially in dealing with people, whether it's employees, suppliers, clients. Live by principles so that at the end of the day, whatever you do can withstand scrutiny. Right? That is my greatest learning. Right?
Hmm.
So, um, so I abandoned the whole thought of becoming a chief engineer and focused on essentially being a better leader and then um, certainly providing as much value to the organization, irrespective of whatever role I assumed. And I speak about that because during my life at TSCT, where I spent 27 years, I never spent more than 3 years in any position, right? So I went, yes, I hopped all over the organization. And when I left, well, I was the acting CEO, right? And when I left TSCT in 2007, right? Well, the organization went through its own dynamics and so on, but what I can tell you is the knowledge, expertise I gained has allowed me to help so many other companies and individuals after I left TSCT. Up to today, I still use some of the knowledge and expertise I gained in TSCT wherever I go. Yeah. So they sent me to Harvard for 3 months, right? To learn about, business competition and so on. I was sent to INSEAD in France for 1 month. I spent quite a lot of time in North America developing technical as well as business expertise. No other company in Trinidad offers you that type of training and exposure. So I have been blessed having worked at TSCT, right? One of the reasons I left, of course, is because I felt I was deserving of the CEO position, and they brought a foreigner. And if you search the internet, you might find an article I wrote about him, right? Because I don't think he did as good a job as I would have if I had assumed the position, right? So the article just might still be on the internet. Yeah. So I have crisscrossed different industries, right? I manage a paint company, right, for Ansa Makal. When I left, the employees didn't want me to leave. Um, I I worked at eTech, developing the Tamana Intech Park, and then I went across to Tobago, helped them develop the Cove, right? And then I went across to NP, where the employees didn't want me to leave after I did what I had to do there. And right now I'm doing some consulting back at the Cove because as soon as they heard I had left NP, they, they inquired as to whether I wanted to come back. And I said, no problem, I'm back. So if the question is, am I where I'm supposed to be? It's not so much that as it is, I think I'm in a place where I'm adding tremendous value. And it's not just about the company that I work in, but I feel that I'm in a place where all the people who have worked it over time, whether they have, whether personal or business related or work related challenges, I'm in a place to help and support them overcome their challenges. And that's what I do right now. Right? Help people deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, just expand a little bit on that contribution that you make in terms of how do you help persons? How do you help persons through experiences, what you have learned what exactly do you do?
All right. So over the years, I've developed my own leadership model,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that leadership model, right? I start with a personal dimension, right? I'm a believer. So the foundation of that, is, of course, is Jesus Christ. And there are five pillars that um, sort of populate that foundation. And I believe that life is about relationship. So unless you want to be a monk and live in the Himalayas by yourself, you have to learn how to engage and interact with others, right? I believe that life is about choice, right? So as far as possible, don't get emotional about it. Try and get as much information and make an informed decision because life will always be about choice. You're faced with choices every day, right? What time I should get up? What do I take to lunch? What am I going to wear today? Life is about choices. So make the best decision based and try to make an informed decision. Life is about sacrifices. Anything that is worthwhile, right, to achieve, you have to make some sort of sacrifice, whether it's financial, your time, your energy, you have to make sacrifices. But life is also about risk. It doesn't necessarily mean that because you made a sacrifice, you are going to achieve. So you have to persevere, right? And then the one I've added recently is life is about diversity. In the world that we live in, you're going to have different views, different perspectives. People see things through different lenses. Try to be as accommodating as you can. Try to walk in their moccasins, as they say. So those are the five pillars that stand on my foundation of life. Right?
Wow, wow, wow. I'm going to steal them. I'm going to steal them.
You're free to so to do. And
Okay,
I shared it
borrow,
very, very
borrow,
good. I
borrow,
shared it
borrow. I'll
very good.
borrow. I'll borrow them.
The
Mhm,
other
mhm.
dimensions of my model, I talk about my leadership compass, right? And my leadership compass, true north is self-leadership. And what I mean by that is before you could even think about leading anyone else, start with leading yourself. Don't make demands on people that you yourself can't live up to, right? So it's self-leadership. The south of that is team leadership. You need to acquire the skill to lead people because if you're leading and nobody is following, you're just on a walk by yourself, right? So develop and there are skills and techniques in terms of how you lead others, right? Then life is about passion, right? Passion for the purpose, right? To what extent are you giving as much as is required to the cause that you're pursuing, right? And then the other side of that is humility. We have to appreciate as leaders that we don't know everything. I practice situational leadership in the sense that if I feel that somebody else is better positioned to take the lead on an issue or a situation, I humbly give up the leadership to that person and say, okay, I think you would do a better job than me. But not many leaders are prepared to do that. They have to
Mm,
also show that I'm in charge and I'm the boss and so on. I don't need to be any boss anymore in my life. I've been enough boss, right? So those things come easy for me, right? I see other people struggle with it because they feel that if they give up leadership, they might lose respect. People might, say negative things about them. I no longer have those challenges, right? Once I recognize that somebody is better than something than me, there's no need for me to compete with them, right? Because too many leaders compete with their staff, right? I
mm,
see the manager trying to out-engineer the planner, out-engineer the engineer. That is so nonsensical. Yeah, I've seen it with my own eyes. When if you give your people the space to do what they have to do, they will just take the ball and run with it, and you end up shining, like a 100-watt bulb. So give people the space to do what they need to do, right? As they say, fall back.
wow.
And I intend to write about it one day because I have developed this model, it makes my leadership journey so easy. And it's the recognition of the attributes that you must bring to the role so that the job itself isn't stressful, right? So I have 7 E's that I use. I think Jack Welch had about 5 E's. I have 7 E's that I use in executing my role. And the first really is that E is energy. right? I remember at TSTT, I used to work when I led the transformation effort. I worked 7 days a week. I got into work between 6 and 6:30, and I would leave after 8. And after I left at 8, I went to the company's gym and worked out for an hour, and then went home and repeated it. And on the weekends, I work half day Saturday and half day Sunday because of the volume of work.
Hmm.
And right now, I see leaders struggle because they can't keep the pace, right? Is either become physically tired, intellectually tired, spiritually tired. You got to have energy if you want to execute on the job, right? The second E is execution capacity, right? People don't realize it, but execution capacity starts with decision making. And after decision making, you look at the whole issue of whether you have the resources and so on. Like if you're going to build a building, right? First, you had to make a decision that you're going to make the building by doing whether it's your cost benefit analysis, right? Or do your proper justification and so on. And once that is done, you look for the funding and so on. But too many of them get stuck in that area of decision making because in many cases they don't have the expertise to make a quick decision, right?
Hmm.
Execution capacity is having that knowledge and expertise to make informed and, let's say, the best decision in these circumstances, right? And then your ability to acquire and manage resources to get the job done. So your execution capacity is critical. Your energizing capabilities, to what extent can you, and they no longer use the word motivate, they now use the word inspire. To what extent can you inspire people for the cause that you're pursuing, right? Convince them to do things that they might have felt, wasn't worthy of being pursued or wasn't the right direction, right? So it's a skill in terms of your ability to communicate, to articulate, right? But to also speak their language,
Hmm.
right? One of the things I did at NPO was spend a lot of time on the shop floor, right? I didn't
Wow.
have a background in oil and gas, but I had to meet them in their space, right?
Hmm.
That's where the sort of engine in terms of the culture, the organization is developed. It's on the floor. So you have
Hmm.
time to get into that space and yeah, be among them. Yeah. Another E has to do with edge. Now, edge has to do with your ability to deal with difficult people and difficult situations. So while I was at TSTD leading my transformation effort, I had the Communication Workers Union, and they had acquired a tremendous amount of influence in the organization. So it was a case of doing things that weren't to their liking, basically. But you had to be strong because if you back down, your whole transformation effort would die. So you had to have the willpower and the courage to stand up to them, basically. They didn't like it, but that is what was required. Similarly, you might have bosses who just not up to it. And well, they call me mannish. I tend to be mannish when it comes to those things. I'm not afraid of people. See, if you come on the wrong side, I'll deal with you, right? But we are now in an age where people are so fearful in terms of dealing with others, whether it's a peer, whether it's a superior. Tell them, and in a respectful manner. I always advocate respectful confrontation. But in some cases, you have to confront, be prepared to confront. Otherwise, your whole program is going to be derailed if you don't confront. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Then you have ethics, right? The ethical standard. What are the values of the organization? And to what extent are you living those values? Are you providing exemplary leadership by the values of the organization? Are you being fair to people? Are you being compassionate, right? Are you caring where your staff is concerned, right? In a lot of cases, organizations have values and they're just stuff on the wall. You have to bring the values to life in the organization. And that's where the ethical standards coming, right? And then empathy. I added the whole issue of empathy fairly recently, about 2 years ago. And in the past, I wasn't overly concerned about it because I felt, if you had somebody who had to dismiss, it might require more edge, right, in terms of confronting
McKinsey
them
has their
than
seven
compassion. But
S's,
after I
right? You
started to
have
see what's happening in places
um
like
your six
Petrotrain and
E's.
TSC so fast, people are going home. as a leader, you had to face those situations. And even though you couldn't correct it, and even though you had a situation where the worker hadn't done anything wrong to justify being sent home, you had a situation where you had to demonstrate empathy, right?
Hmm.
Because it wasn't their fault, but the situation was beyond you as a leader. So in those situations, you have to develop the empathy to engage and, notwithstanding, try to provide some hope for the individuals in those situations. Yeah. So those are the E's that I use fundamentally in executing my role as a leader.
All right. So give us your outlook. What do you think is happening as we look forward over the next couple of months?
Wow. um, Having been, involved in industry locally at the highest level for quite a period of time, my concern is our ability to diversify the economy. Yeah.
Hmm.
The whole issue with foreign exchange. And it's just so interesting that, just the past couple of weeks, I've been working on a paper on introducing innovation in Tobago. But our ability to diversify in the face of falling oil and gas revenues, that is going to create a challenge for the country, right? Our
Hmm.
ability to um, develop our manufacturing sector or agricultural sector. So uh, I think we still pay too much lip service to the whole issue of diversification when what it requires is strong leadership, right? More than anything else. I always say everything rises and falls on leadership. And where diversification is concerned, it's fundamentally a leadership issue. We could have
Wow.
done a much better job. Climate change is a big thing for me
Wow.
in terms of what is happening and our willingness to do what is required to save the planet, as it were. But when you look at specific countries, and America is pivotal from a global standpoint, I look at the politics of America more than anything else, and what Mr. Trump has been able to do. And if ever there was someone who had the wrong kind of leadership, it's him. But he
Hmm.
has given the wrong type of people the space and the permission to do things that are not in the global interest, right? There are people who are very fearful of what is happening in the US. They see
Hmm.
other ethnicities rising and taking their proper place when they were denied historically. So they are emerging, and that emergence is creating fear in some people. And now they are acting out that fear, right? So the white supremacists and the people who want to fly the Confederate flag and so on, they've been given permission to have a louder voice. And if those on the other side aren't strong enough to try to, for want of a better word, defeat those voices, you're going to have an issue, a global issue on your hands. Yeah.
Got
So
you.
that is one of my major concerns as I look at global events. I mean, you always have the Israeli-Pakistani issues that's been going on for centuries and so on. So that is not going to create a global situation. You have a lot of refugees across the world, right? And in a lot of countries, like within the European Union, there are those who are pushing back on giving these people a better chance at living, right? So that insularity, right, is something we have to fight against, right? We must adopt a posture where everybody's supposed to find a place to live in peace and in harmony, and they could aspire in the world. But that is not happening across the board, as it were. Right? There are those who feel that there are those who should do without. Yeah. So
Yes, I
that is
got
my
you.
general perspective. Yeah.
Challenges and so on. So if you could identify possibly one of your most challenging experiences and how you're able to manage, tell us.
Well, my most challenging time really was when I was appointed to lead the transformation of TSTT in preparation for competition. So apart from the culture of the organization, you had a militant union to deal with.
Ah.
That was, yeah. So it was a significant challenge in terms of we looked at customer service, we looked at technology, right? And those, and of course, corporate culture change.
Mm.
And that is where my leadership model started to evolve from that standpoint. Yeah.
Oh, got you. Got
Yeah.
you. Got you. Got you. All
Mm.
right. So this is the last question and the more serious side. What friendly advice do you have for persons getting into business or leadership? I know you share that length in terms of your leadership model. If you were to select one piece of friendly advice, what would that be?
Try and educate yourself as much as possible. In a lot of cases, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Hmm.
Getting into business has a lot of risk. Try and surround yourself with people who have walked that road before. Right? Don't feel that you know it all and everything is going to be a bed of roses. Business is challenging, right? You don't know it all. Right? You don't know what
Ah,
you don't know.
you don't know what you don't know. I love that. I love that. So you ready? You ready? You ready for the fun side?
The fun side, sure.
The other side of C-suite.
All right.
So I don't know if
Hmm.
you will sing for us today as the other persons who did. But you can select as many as you want to describe to us your favorite food, song, book, people, place to visit, and much more. Where do you want to start?
Uh, I don't really have a favorite food, to be honest with you. I'm not a food lover, to be honest. I eat to live. Some people live to eat. Yeah, I would skip lunch. I would skip dinner. I I love more snacks. I grew up with pay me, right? So I like to eat that. I like sweet things, right? So I like a little pay me. I would take a odd piece of cake, right? If it's sweet bread, I would eat the end of it because I like the crusty part of it. So those are my few hang-ups where food is concerned. But to say I have a favorite food, no, I don't. I like to eat lobster, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But to say I would go out of my way for food, no, I will not do that.
All
Right?
right. What about your song?
Uh, let's come back to that.
All right. Book. So besides good to great, or is good to great it?
Well, the one that really opened my eyes is Jack Welch, the G-Way.
Mm.
So that was how he transformed GE. And a lot of the things that he would have articulated there, I started adopting in my leadership role, like reporting to people on a quarterly basis, you know, how you value performance versus behaviors in an organization and putting greater emphasis on behaviors rather than performance. That's why I learned those things to great benefit. Yeah.
Excellent. Your favorite people?
Okay, I try to read autobiographies of people like Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, um, Martin Luther King. Yeah, because
Wow.
I am the type of person I'm prepared to put it all on the line when I believe in a cause. Yeah, and that's what
Mm.
it. Yeah, right. A lot of people talk it, but not many of us do it. And
Got you.
those are the people that I would hold as role models in my life.
Got you. Place to visit.
No, well, the place that fascinated me the most in all my travels was Hong Kong. I mean,
Ah,
it was out of this world. I
lucky
found.
you.
Where would I like to? What I'd like to visit is a launch of the rocket. I want to go to Cape Canaveral to see the launch. Right, so that's on my to-do list.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to see that in person.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to get some scoop on you here now. Your clumsiest moment.
I am horrible at when you get up and try to sing a calypso, what you call it? Extempo. I am horrible. Horrible. Like my brain does just freeze. And
Tell us, put it
I
out there.
yeah, I could get up and give a speech at a moment's notice. I could walk into a function and say, "Hey, I need you to talk about such and such," and it's easy for me. On two occasions, I was called upon, and I just couldn't string anything together. I felt so. Yeah, it happened twice, not once, twice.
Oh gosh.
So it was a real reality check.
Oh gosh. Okay, so we know what one of your weaknesses, not strengths, right?
Yeah.
All right, Bernard. Yeah, I know you started to talk about your pet peeves a little bit earlier. You
Yes,
wanna you wanna
my
dump it here?
I have a particular philosophy, Natasha. It is my view that the political class has undermined the professional class, which has informed where we are as a country, especially where our state enterprises are concerned. And
Mm,
that the professional class hasn't had the courage to stand up to the political class.
mm.
Yeah. So that
Wow.
is my hypothesis, because
Wow.
in many cases, the professional class thinks, boy, I have my wife, my children to send to school, I have my mortgage, right? And don't stand because they're fearful that if they lose their job, they can't get another one. And that is pervasive across the state enterprise sector. I don't know to what
Mm,
it applies in the private sector, but it has undermined the state enterprise. So when I see politicians jumping up and saying, we had to fix this company, we had to fix that company, I just laugh, because they had a primary role to play in the failure of these companies.
mm.
So that is
Got
my
you.
perspective. And like I said, one of these days, I will write about it.
Looking forward. Looking forward to hearing and getting a voice on that issue. All right. So let's talk about your hobbies. What do you do outside of work?
I like jogging, going to the gym, and reading.
Oh, when last you went to the gym? All right,
Just
just because of COVID and all of that, I wouldn't
attention.
cause you to get in trouble. But
It's just before the COVID lockdown.
all
Yeah.
right, okay, that's good. So we are coming down to the end of our interview and time together. I want you to make a wish.
Or for the end of this pandemic, people are being mentally stressed without even recognizing that they're being mentally stressed in this environment. Yeah. So we need to get some closure where it is concerned. I mean, the avenue for that really is the pathway through vaccinations, and if we have to do it, we have to do it. We have to get it done. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Bernard, is there anything else that you want to just mention to us before we wrap up today?
I feel that there are a lot of people like me in the system who could make a valuable contribution. And if, as a country, we tap into our skill and expertise, you could get a lot done without having to pay any sort of significant cost for accessing these expertise and talents that are available to the country.
So, Bernard, I thank you for your time that you spent with us today and
Most welcome.
particularly enjoyed hearing about your leadership model. It's something definitely we'll drop the notes in. But on behalf of the Key community, the Key business community, we want to say thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge, your time, your love, your sacrifice. And certainly, we are looking to see